Adams and Washington family. I am thrilled to be here with you. I am glad that my colleague of many, many years, Martha, has asked me to share my message with you regarding planning for retirement. Um, she and I have worked together for a very long time, but once she learned that I was crazy about finance and budgeting, she thought that me putting a little something together for the family would be additive to your reunion and event. So I'm hoping that you will take time later to maybe review this video that I've made just for the family, to review some tips and some hopefully some good guidance for how you are planning for your retirement, to ask the big question, am I ready to retire yet, or when can I retire? So before we dive in too deep, let me tell you who I am. I am a friend of Martha's for many, many years. We've both worked together actually for over 20 some years. I'm also a financial coach, and I do that because I really love teaching people about how to prepare from a budgeting standpoint, to getting their money in order, as well as preparing to retire. My training is, I'm an MBA, but I'm also a financial coach trained through the Dave Ramsey Solutions program as a master financial coach. And so you'll hear very similar principles if you have followed their teachings. But in general, in short, I'm just here because I really enjoy sharing this type of information. I could go on and on for hours, but we're not. We're going to try to keep this tight. But I wanted to give you a quick introduction before we dive in so you know who's actually sharing this information with you. So the question is are you ready to retire? What's it going to take to retire? It's really a loaded question. And so this is one where I will give you two quick snippets. One, it's never too late to start planning. Number two, time is your friend. So the earlier you start planning, the better. But again, never too late to get started. One of the things that you've heard me already say is that I'm a financial coach, but I want to explain the difference between a financial coach and an advisor. So, as a coach, think of a basketball coach, a football coach. They're not out on the field or on the court with the player, but they are coaching and they do training, and they're helping the players figure out how to execute effectively when they are on the court and on the field. So that's what I do. It's guiding. It's your partnership. It's that person you go to go, hey, tell me how to do. But it's not telling you the answers. You're seeking out the answers for yourself because everybody's journey is different and independent of the other. So again, the coach is a guide, it's a coach. The advisor, that's someone that's good, you really are ready for when you're at the investing stages. And they're going to actually tell you what to do, how to do, when to do. I can give you some of that, but I'm not going to tell you exactly what to do for you. I'm going to give you the tools. That's really the fundamental key difference between a coach and an advisor. So we're going to dive in, but I just want to make sure I set that up for you, just so as we're going, you kind of know what's going on. So who is this video for? It's for teens and anyone there and up. Okay. So the idea is, I said, time is on your side. That's if you're younger, but it's never too late, which is why we want to give some more tools and tips and tricks for how to prepare no matter what age and stage you are. So if you're a teen, I've created a video for you. Go ahead and check it out. I put the URL down below. It's about how to become a millionaire by the time you're ready to retire, which I think the article says 67, but it can be up to you how soon based on how much you're able to save. So anyway, go check that out. I think you're going to enjoy it. It gives you some good inspiration for if you do a little bit now over a short period of time, you won't panic when you're in your later years. So go ahead and check that out. The rest of us, we're going to dive into more of the planning tips that are good for you no matter where you're at in your age and your planning, because this will be foundational. So when we look at planning for retirement, the key here is knowing your numbers. And knowing your numbers is not the fun part because that means you have to actually understand What do I need to retire? What's my debt load? What are my living expenses? What kind of lifestyle do I want to have when I'm retired? And these are things you got to actually sit down with and really dissect to come up with those numbers. Okay. There are studies that say, or the experts, they say that you should have about 80% of your income. And if I'm let's see, I think it says like the average person at the time of retirement will have $255,000 in their investments. However, some are suggesting that 80% will get you there. But I don't really believe in that formula. I would have to say I don't agree with that. And let me tell you why. Because what I said earlier is this is a personal, individual journey. Your living expenses are different than mine. How you want to live when you retire will be different from me. So that's why I say we've got to know our retirement um, numbers, because retirement, it's not an age. That's what everybody really gets confused. It's not about, oh, I'm 60 or I'm 55 and now it's time to retire. It is about your money. And that's what we've got to really dive into. So although I don't subscribe to the formula of 80%, that very well could apply for you, but I don't agree to putting one number on everybody. So let's dive into determining how you're going to actually calculate this number and move forward for yourself, not for your partner. Well, if you're married, yes, your partner. But if it's not for other people outside of your household, it's just for you. So let's look at an example to start of how to calculate what you're going to need to retire. In this example, I'm looking at a 35-year-old that has not started any savings at all. But they're aiming for $1.2 million by the time they're 67 years old. And we're going to assume that they have a 10% return on their investment. That means that they would need to put in, or you would need to put in, $450 a month until you're 67 or 66 and a half. So that's one formula, but as you can tell, there's a whole lot missing from that number because we've got to make sure, well, first, do you even have that $450 a month to invest every month into your retirement? And so what I like to encourage you to do is, number one, use retirement calculators there. And I'm going to put some in the description down below so that you can see where you personally are. Retirement calculators, what I love about them is they include inflation and tax increases, cost of living, right? And so those are things that you can't really anticipate today, especially if you're 35 versus where it's going to be when you're 67. So these calculators, they will try to formulate that for you and give you a pretty solid number. And so that you can go, oh, okay, so to retire, basically, I think I'm going to need $1.2 million. This is how much money I'm going to need to put inside of it. So how do you find the money? Now, one thing I always say is you need to be debt free. So if you're not debt free, how are you going to pay a mortgage and a car note and credit cards when you're retired and you don't have income coming in? You see, that 35-year-old you is preparing for the 67 or 70-year-old you. So you need to pay all these things off before you want to retire if you don't want your retirement funds to get eaten up by credit cards and car notes and mortgages, etc. So I like to say first and foremost, look into your living expenses. Do you know what it costs you to live every day in your home or every month in your home and your lifestyle? Okay, so you want to look into what is that. You want to calculate your monthly expenses and annual. That way you can have a good understanding of what it's going to look like when you retire. So I may not have an hour commute anymore when I retire because I'm not going back and forth. I won't have that wear and tear on my car. I'm not going to have to do the dry cleaning. I'm not going to have to do this and that and thus. So you have to calculate and understand what all that is. You also want to think about, okay, well, maybe I have a housekeeper now, or I have a private cook, or I have a driver. These are things that you may go, I want those in retirement as well. But if that's the case, you've got to be very careful to go, well, will my budget sustain that? So that's why we have to know all these things that we want to be able to do. I want to travel, I want to go all around the world all the time, etc. These are part of your expenses that you have to factor for that retirement calculation. I want to go back really quick to the debt part, about being debt free or having your debt paid off. In order to pay all of that money that you might need to pay into your retirement later in years, you could be in your 40s, 50s, or 60s, you're then making up. And so you have to look at your lifestyle today and go, hey, wait a minute, I need more money. I may need to be contributing $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 a month to get there, to get to that number that I've projected that I'm going to need. Now, if that's the case, I got to make some lifestyle changes probably today so that I can really enjoy those things later in life. So one of the things I always say, we have to look at our hair. Are we going every day, every week, every month? What are we spending? We may look at alternatives there. What are we drinking? Maybe we love champagne, but we need to now taper that back down to maybe beer. Maybe I love coffee. I'm going to be drinking coffee at Starbucks, but no, now I'm not going to go to Starbucks every day. I'm going to actually make it at home. Those are the type of lifestyle changes and choices that you have to make for yourself based on what your goals are. People may say, well, that little $5 doesn't mean anything. Well, what it does when it adds up. So that's what we have to look at. Quickly, some other factors when we're trying to make these calculations of what is it going to take for me to live the way I want to, or get the funds that I need as fast as I can to retire at the level that I want. We also want to look at healthcare expenses. Those things, if you already have something, that's something you want to factor now because that's going to carry potentially with you to the end. Life expectancy, you want to look at your family history. My mom and dad, they lived into their 80s, late 80s, I should say. Nowadays, that's almost young, right? So I'm expecting to hopefully make it into my 90s or even 100. But if that's the case and I wanted to retire at 60, well, that means I've got 20 to, well, 60, 20 to 40 years of living that I need to be able to pay for when I'm not earning an income. So that's a really big, important one. Social Security. You want to go to mysocialsecurity.com, and there is another calculator, and it'll help you understand where you are in terms of how much money you're going to be receiving. Now, that changes depending on where you are in your professional life, where you are at 35 versus where you are at 65 or 60 or even your 50s. The projections may or may not be that helpful because, again, you haven't made it to that threshold of your high income earning years, which usually are in your 50s and 60s. So you want to know what that is because, again, we're trying to ultimately get to this big calculation of what's it going to cost me to retire and how much money do I need to put away. So we want to factor that as well. And then you want to look at what's the annual return on your investment. You'll factor that too. And a lot of the calculators will ask you to plug that in. So as an example, if I'm with Fidelity or Les Schwab or some other investment house, they will show you how much your annual return is. And that is what the compounding is year over year. You're earning interest on interest, which I love that. So these are important things that you're going to want to factor in coming up with your calculation. So let's do a quick review. I know this segment is a little bit long, but I want to make sure that you understand you want to use calculators that are going to factor inflation and taxes for you, and these are retirement calculators is what I'm referring to. You want to understand what's your budget. If you now need to pay $1,000 into your 401k or your retirement fund just to get there to what that calculator said you needed, you're going to need to understand what your budget currently looks like, what your living expenses look like today, what are the luxuries you're going to want in the future, what kind of debt do you have and how much money's got to go to that to pay that off so that you can pay all the money into your retirement. You might have to make some changes, like we said, hair, coffee, what you're drinking, etc. You want to look at health expenses because that's a key factor. In addition to life expectancy, how long are you going to live? What's your family history trend, right? Social Security, look into that. Any time is a good time to go look into your Social Security and understand what you believe that return is going to be because we have to keep an eye on that. And then what's the annual return when you're investing? You want to be able to understand that as well. So a lot of things, but this is all the homework that you've got to start to do in order to get there. And that's where, if you're not comfortable doing all that by yourself, a coach is perfect. I want to dive into the investing side just a little bit. Again, we're not going to tell you how to invest, but I want you to understand the tools that are available to you, and I want to make sure you kind of understand some of the basics. So, one there is the traditional 401k. It offers a significant tax benefit. Contributions, this is the key, are made with pre-tax dollars, reducing your taxable income. For this 401k contribution, it is deducted before taxes, meaning you defer taxes until withdrawal later. So you're putting the money in, it's compounding, but when you pull it out later, you got to get taxed. The one that I really love is the Roth IRA. So if you have access to a Roth or just want to establish your own Roth, if your employer has it, this is one where it's after taxes. So you have paid taxes on the money, and now it's going to go into the account so that when you pull it, when you retire, it's already taxed. So that one's really good. And it also still lowers your current tax bill. But I want you to really understand the Roth is really a good friend if you have access to it, especially through your employer. So speaking of your employer, the employer match. This is free money. In short, it's free money. Free money because if they say the minimum is to get the match is 5%, then you put in that 5% as fast as you can, because then they're going to put on 5%. So now what do you have? You actually have equivalent of 10% of your investment. Every employer doesn't do it, but you certainly want to look into it to see if they do. One of the things that I want to also cover for you is that these are things you have to research, because everybody's different, and where your money is, it may be more important to do just your traditional 401k. And maybe you want to go, well, I don't want to do the Roth because later I have a different scenario going on, or I want to just defer my taxes. But you see how that's a personal choice. My recommendation, I would coach you, is to definitely go with the Roth. So you want to just look and see so that you understand what the difference is. Now we're gonna transition into compounding interest. So when you're investing money, that's the beautiful thing, the gift is compound interest. So let me see if I can give you some good examples on that. We talked about putting money into a 401k or savings. But now we got to talk about, well, how does it grow faster, and what's the benefit of investing? And the beautiful thing is compounding interest. It's the best thing ever, because it's essentially money that is growing for you. It's calculated on the initial investment, and then it's going to give you a percentage of an increase. So, as an example, you put in $1,000. It's going to, let's just say you only have a 1% interest, right? Which is what most savings accounts are doing, but they don't work the compounding way. But you're going to have $10 that you're going to earn on that $1,000 at 1% annually. Okay. In the second year, though, you're going to earn 1% on the principal plus the interest. So you're going to have $10.10. So again, it's interest on interest. That's what compounding is all about. The other thing is compounding works the other way when you have those credit card loans and the traditional loans, because it's compounding on, if you don't pay off that $10,000 credit card, and they're going to charge you 5%, that is like daily and monthly, that they're adding that on top of your principal. That's why a lot of times you go, wait, I'm paying my monthly minimum every month, but I'm not making any ground. Because when you get a loan or you have a credit card, it's not designed for you to pay the minimum. The minimum just helps them get their interest up front, or keep you where you're going to have to catch up, or you're going to miss a payment, or whatever. So I don't want to go into the negative too much on that, but there's nothing good about credit cards and car loans unless you really have a very, very, very strong handle on your money, and you can stay out ahead of all of that. But if that's the case, you really shouldn't need the loans, because that means you could just save the money and it can compound for you. So again, that example is $1,000 in your account at 1%. Annually, it's going to give you $10. But every year, that $10 is now added on, or included, and then the interest is now on the total amount that's in your account. the $1,000 10. So it compounds, it grows. And that's why time is on your side if you have time, right? Lots of time, because now you've got 10, 15, 20 years that it's just going to keep compounding and flipping and going. So that's the beautiful thing. The one thing I love the most is compounding interest. You want to throw as much money into an account that will compound for you so that you get that over time. That's a big one. I need to go back and make sure I give you a good definition here on the difference between an IRA, an individual retirement account, and a 401k, which is what your employer does. So the IRA, it is very similar to the employer-sponsored 401k, but you open a fund. You're going to open it, you're going to fund it, and you're going to manage it. And you can do that by going directly to an investment house like Fidelity or Les Schwab or whomever you so choose. And the 401k, as I said, that is a retirement savings plan that lets you invest a portion of each paycheck before taxes, and it's and deducted depending on the type of contribution that you're making. So again, the employer um, managed investment, that's your 401k. An IRA is an individual, meaning you, retirement account that you go to the bank and you set up, etc. One other quick tip that I want to share before we wrap this up is you want to go in a certain order. So remember when I said if your employer has a match program, so they have a 401k program, that's fine. But if they have a match, you do that. You put all the money you can in the match. Then if you don't have that, then you just do the regular 401k. And then if you can't do that, you want to also look into within your employer's options if they have a Roth IRA within the 401k structure, because that's the one, again, it's taxed so that you don't pay taxes later. And then there's, of course, your traditional IRA and investment accounts. So just wanted to circle back on that, just so that you're clear about the difference between the two. But now, in conclusion, we're planning for retirement. Are we ready for retirement? We've got a laundry list of things that I've outlined that you really do need to look into for yourself. I say do it with a coach, do it with a family member or a friend, but you've got to, or your spouse, but you got to look into knowing your numbers. I think that's the most important thing that I could have shared with you today, is to get in and find out what are the numbers. What am I going to need for retirement? What's my debt load look like that is really robbing my retirement? Right? I want to get rid of that debt so that I have even more money to throw into my savings and my retirement accounts. I don't want to retire with a mortgage and a car note and a bunch of credit cards, right? So our goal is, if you need help with budgeting, definitely let's get that under control, or reach out to someone to help you. So that's the budget, to help you get rid of the debt, to then set you up to invest. So I hope that you guys have found this helpful. It's a lot to do, but man, if you spend the time now and do it, and you know your numbers, and don't put your head in the sand like an ostrich, you will at least go informed, and you'll be moving with intention. You'll be able to make easy decisions. It's very easy to make decisions when you see it in black and white, that, hey, this is how much money I'm blowing, or this is how much debt I have, and this is how much money I need for retirement. So I want to, again, open myself up to be available to you all. If you're looking for a financial coach, don't hesitate to give me a call. I would love to get you started and be that cheerleader for you, and just give you some guidance on getting your budgeting and your finances under control to set you up to be good stewards of your money, as well as invest in your future, which should be retirement. So all the information is going to be down below. I hope that you guys had a great family reunion, and I look forward to hearing from you. Until then, take care.